practice. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى ودعا إلى سنته إلى يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, as you can see, I'm not Imam Majid. Imam Majid was not able to make it, so I'm covering for him, inshallah, tonight. But he told me that last week he covered ayah number 4 from Surah Al-Qasas, Surah number 28, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم إنه كان من المفسدين. He said, indeed, Pharaoh arrogantly elevated himself in the land and divided its people into subservient groups, one of which he persecuted, slaughtering their sons and keeping their women. He was truly one of the corrupters. We're going to go into the next ayah, which is وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. But it was our will to favor those who were oppressed in the land, making them models of faith as well as successors. So subhanAllah, taking just even a step back, looking at Surah Al-Qasas itself, this is a surah that is filled with gems about the story of Musa alayhi salam, the life of Musa alayhi salam. But very much so from the perspective of Musa. And it gives us insights. The other surah, they still talk about very similar things, but like if you look at Surah Taha, Taha is talking a lot more from the perspective of Harun and the relationship between Musa and Harun, right? Whereas Surah Al-Qasas is different. It's coming directly from what's happening from Musa alayhi salam's perspective. And it gives us, the story itself is Qasas, so it's stories, right? It's all about the stories of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealing to us what has ibar. Now, the beautiful thing is we just started with this, and these are tilka ayatul kitab al-mubin, right? These are going to be the verses from the clear book. And so it's all here, نَتْلُ عَلَيْكَ مِن نَبَإِ مُوسَى وَفِرْعَوْنَ بِالْحَقِّ لِقَوْمِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. So again, now it's looking at it from not just Musa alayhi salam's perspective, but Fir'aun's perspective as well. And we're getting now to the part where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the dhulm that took place from the beginning. And talking about how Fir'aun created this division between the groups of Bani Israel and Bani Israel and then the Egyptians themselves. And within the Bani Israel, he caused them, right here with the examples, يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُم. He kills their sons, but they keep their women, right? And for this is the time that Musa alayhi salam was born into. And we know that on each other year, they would kill the eldest child. And so Musa alayhi salam, that was the year in which he was born, but Harun had come before, and so he was part of the saved year, and Musa alayhi salam was part of the year that was supposed to be killed. And so this is the kind of macro environment that Musa alayhi salam was coming into. So here very specifically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after talking about what Fir'aun has done, ala fil ard, right, this arrogance that Fir'aun has demonstrated on earth, Allah talks about, and because of this, Allah will always favor the oppressed over the oppressors. And He will make them models of faith. And He will make them the warithin. They will always. So if we just look at the, subhanAllah, how the Quran is timeless in so many regards. This is almost a description of what's happening in our current times, right? يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيُونَ نِسَاءَهُم. That they are killing our children and they're leaving their parents to witness it. Living is worse than the death itself, right? And the people of Gaza, the people of Palestine, are constantly witnessing this every single day. That they bury their children and they stay alive until they wait for their time to come. But we've seen more videos than we can count, and more videos than our souls should even bear, of fathers and mothers burying their children in the ground. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. But it was our will to favor those who were oppressed in the land. So history repeats itself. And this is the beauty of the Quran. And this is why it's so important to have a direct and personal relationship with the Quran itself. Because it teaches us what not to do, and what happens when you do something, and what you should do in order to earn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. But it shows it to us throughout history. And if we don't learn from the Qasas, if we don't learn from the lessons, if we don't learn from the experience of the people that came before us, we will never learn how to protect the future. There's nothing else that you can do. If Allah is showing you, look at what happened in the past, here were the things that led up to it, here's what you shouldn't do, and yet we come back and we repeat it over and over and over again. And so this is nothing different. We're witnessing Bani Israel, the children of Israel and their descendants, now committing the same atrocities that they themselves, that their forefathers went through. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again is focusing on the favor that He will always give to the oppressed. And that's why we always want to be on the side of the oppressed and never on the side of the oppressor. No matter, you always want to, what do they call it? Your threshold is to overcompensate on being on the side of the oppressed, and don't make the mistake of accidentally being on the side of the oppressor themselves. And this ayah right here proves this to us, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always favor the ones who are mustad'afin. So what do we take from this? What does it mean when Allah uses the oppressed as a model? Because He says, وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً. We want to make them leaders. Again, everything we're witnessing today, there's no need to even go into the depths of tafsir here, because we're witnessing the tafsir of this ayah right now. The leaders that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is choosing among the people of Palestine is now radiating through all of the homes globally. Because you can't deny it. Everything that you witness, you cannot deny anymore. And so this is where the chosenness doesn't always come with the luxuries of kingship and dominion and muluka, right? In other places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the children of Israel that we're going to make you muluk, we're going to make you kings. But this a'imma here is not about having dominion. This is actually coming out of the rubble of being from the mustad'afin. This is coming out of the rubble of destruction and rising like the phoenix from the ashes to prove that you cannot be defeated. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's truth will not be defeated. And so here there comes a responsibility with this. And this is what I believe that the people of Gaza right now are themselves learning even more that it's no longer a choice to just persevere. There's too much riding on their ability to continue to survive despite the unimaginable destruction that is befalling them. The unimaginable things that Fir'aun himself did to the Bani Israel, right? And so learning from the story of Musa alayhi salam, it shows us the tadbir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It shows us the calculated precision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us through in the story of Musa alayhi salam. And looking at his story, you think from that time where he was born, where all of the children of that year, the eldest children, are supposed to be killed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires to his mother to put him in the river. And he tells her that I'm going to send him to the enemy that is trying to kill him. So as a mother, this is going to be something that feels not even unimaginable, but that you don't even know if you can go through with it. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَبَطْنَا عَلَىٰ قَلْبِهَا وَلَوْلَا أَن رَبَطْنَا عَلَىٰ قَلْبِهَا. She would not have done what she was asked to do. But what happened? That river meandered all the way to the house of the person who was trying to kill him, and so happened that he forgets his dream, he forgets everything that's taking place around him, and he allows his wife and her affection for this child and wanting a child to cloud the initial judgment and the ruthlessness that he exhibited with all the other children. And he just decided, let's leave it. Let's take him as a child. So you can see the tadbir from the beginning of the story of Musa alayhi salam. وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي. I have fashioned and created you for myself. And this is Kalimullah, right? This is the one prophet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes as the one that he spoke directly to, which is an honor that only the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam we know spoke to him when he went on his Isra and his Mi'raj. But Kalimullah is the sifa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to Musa. And the reason for that is because everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts him through in order to get him to the exact position that is needed for him to be prepared to speak to Fir'aun. But all of it happens from the context of dhulm, the context of oppression. So you can only, for us, the hope that we see is only through the darkest times of oppression will greatness rise. It's a rule from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is only through the ashes of the destruction and the oppression that we will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's chosen people rise. Now the question becomes, what have we prepared for it, right? How do we become these successors of this group of people that have been honored with being chosen to experience such unimaginable loss and yet still be able to lead? How do you do it? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us through that. He actually shows us just through the story of Musa the different emotions that a person can feel. Something beautiful that I've been looking into in just the compilation of ayat about Musa alayhi salam is how many emotions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about from his standpoint. Many ayat speak about the khawf of Musa. He was constantly afraid. He speaks about anxiety, the worries of Musa. He speaks about the impatience of Musa. He speaks about the insecurities of Musa, that Ya Allah, send with me my brother because afsahu minni. He has a tongue that is more eloquent than mine. So he had an insecurity about his own eloquence. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to take us through these different experiences, the deepest, most intimate parts of his relationship with Musa alayhi salam. Ya Musa, la takhaf. Don't be afraid, Musa. I'm here. Inni ma'akuma. I'm with both of you. And yes, okay, Musa, I'll let your brother come along with you. Yani constantly, وَمَا أَعْجَلَكَ عَنْ قَوْمِكَ يَا مُوسَى. What has made you move so impatiently and you left your post, your leadership? عَجِلْتُ إِلَيْكَ رَبِّي لِتَرْضَى. Because his intention was constantly moving with such fervor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the beauty of this is it shows us the emotions that take place while people are being oppressed as well. The instability, the insecurity, the anxiety, the fear that you are living with every single day. And Musa is the exhibit of all of those emotions put into one. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises him. So it's truly a story of hope for us, to just even looking through just the lens of this one ayah, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ, right? This favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-man, yani in other parts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the believers, قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّ عَلَيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they used to come to him, these Bedouins, the A'rab, and they would try to make him feel like they've done him a favor by becoming Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to tell them, لا تمنوا علي إسلامكم بل الله يمن عليكم أن هداكم للإيمان. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that actually will show you favor because He guided you to Iman. You're not giving any favors to Allah by being Muslim. It's the greatest honor that you and I can have. For here Allah is using the same terminology to say that I want to give these people that have been oppressed by Fir'aun in such destructive ways, I want to give them this favor, and I want to elevate the mustad'afin. And I want to make them a'imma. I want to make them the leaders, and I want to make them the warithin. So what does that mean for us as a community? What does becoming the successors of the mustad'afin actually mean for us? What does it mean on a practical basis? One, it means that we need to have confidence in our lineage, in our history. A lot of times there's an inferiority that comes upon us when we come from what they call rags, the places where we had nothing. But they try to always show that the story goes from rags to riches. But the reality is these riches many times are actually worse than the rags that we came from in terms of our own spiritual states. But how do we become the warithin? How do we actually find honor in being among those who have been given this successorship over being among the people of the oppressed? Is we have to spend time with it. We have to spend time with the discomfort of seeing and witnessing what happens to the people that don't have as much as others. We have to teach ourselves to be okay with being in service of and being around and surrounding ourselves with people that are from the mustad'afin. Whether that's in our intimate prayers, whether that's in our actions, whether that's actually doing like our brothers, mashallah, that spend many years of their lives doing this, living and breathing and eating and experiencing the pain that exists with oppression. But it also then teaches us, what do we take from this experience that Musa alayhi salam carries as a legacy to the worst of tyrants? And what do we learn from that? Right? So if we go to the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. And to establish them in the land, and through them show Fir'aun and Haman, his general, and their soldiers, the fulfillment of what they feared. Meaning everything that they feared is that we have to kill these people because they may rise up. That one of them may come and take away my throne. That's the fear that he was living with. The insecurity of tyranny is you always fear that it's going to be taken away. The beauty of oppression is that you got nothing to lose. The only thing that you have is to gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here that He's going to establish these people that He has chosen to be ai''imma. He has chosen to be the models of what it means to actually live, right? If we remember back to the march of the hundreds of thousands of people that went from the south of Gaza back to the north of Gaza, after all of the destruction, heads were still held high. Just that moment of other human beings witnessing what it looks like to continue to walk with your head raised was enough to show what it means to have honor. You didn't need anything else. And this is why every day, subhanAllah, masajid are filled with people that are taking their shahada because they've never witnessed something like this. And so I think for us, the mindset that we have to also play into is with tests will always come the ease. Right? Inna ma'al usri yusra. But if we give up before we feel the yusra, before we feel the relief that comes, then you've lost everything. The usra itself is the journey for us to even be able to experience what it feels like to have yusra. But the difficulty is when the challenge that we as human beings have is we don't know how to last long enough with the usra. We just want it to end. And so what we're saying here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying through this, Allah is actually laying a foundation that is far more wise than we can ever imagine. And something is rumbling beneath the surface, and Allah is using these as an ai''imma, as leaders, to provide the next generation of warithin, of the inheritors, of the successors. And through that, He's going to establish them on the land, and He's going to show Pharaoh and his general and their soldiers everything that they feared. And that's why we see when Musa alayhi salam got to the Red Sea, and Allah and Bani Israel, yani his followers, gave up. They said, "You brought us here. Look what you've done. We would have been better off staying in the city." And He said, Don't be afraid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. So now He's using the same protection and the validation and the reinforcement that Allah uses with Him, using it on His people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاضْرِبْ بِعَصَاكَ الْبَحْرِ. Hit with your staff the sea, and then it will part. And we witness even later on in Surah Al-Qasas what happens to Fir'aun in those last moments, right? Everything that they feared, all of this work that they put into protecting and fortifying themselves from within him, from within his own household, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings out the actual source of his destruction. But then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says? وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِعِيهِ فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي إِنَّا رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. We inspired the mother of Musa, nurse him, but when you fear for him, put him then into the river, and do not fear or grieve. We will certainly return him to you and make him one of the messengers. So she was given the blueprint of what's going to happen. She was given the blueprint that first, that connection between the mother and the child needed to happen. You see, this is the mercy also. These are the subtleties of the Quran that shows us how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, yura'i, He actually protects and preserves the the emotions of the mother by saying, okay, feed him. You have enough time to be able to do that. To build that bond where he knows you and you know him, right? Which is that first intimate moment between a mother and her child. But then the moment that you fear that they're coming closer, they're about to enter into the home, put him into the river. But then don't be afraid. Don't be afraid and don't be sad, because we're going to bring him back to you. For these are the elements that for us as believers, khawf is a constant, fear is a constant emotion that we live with. Like right now in Syria, there's attacks happening outside of Damascus, right? People are in just constant fear. Gunshots and attacks. For the entire region is destabilized. We here are listening to different reports about the economy, about what's, Trump, any given day, things are taking place and executive orders are being made and people are being deported. We're in constant feelings of and emotions of fear that at the end of the day, for us, we have to look, how do we deal with that? How do we manage our own fears? How do we protect ourselves against just losing any semblance of our own sanity in these moments? It's to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? How do we cope with it? Is by understanding that history, Allah is showing you, and He's showing me, and He's showing us that despite the blatant and apparent difficulty that you're going through, there's wisdom behind it that's going to allow it to propel you into a far greater position. But we have to be patient enough to witness that. We have to be patient enough to witness that. For this is honestly a spiritual resilience that we have to build as a community, to understand that the sunan from the Quran, the more that you live with the Quran, the more that you read from the Quran, you can understand that there is a cycle of almost rise and fall and then replacement. When certain people start to build themselves and they gain traction and they gain power and they gain prestige and they reach exuberance, they start to get to a point where they stop caring about the other human being. Because now, ala fil ard, they've reached this level of arrogance that they don't care about anybody else. Like, Ya Haman, ibni li sarh. Khalas, you believe, ana rabbukum al-a'la. I am in control of everything. That's where people go. They can't stop. The shaitan gives you such, he increases you in so much of this arrogance that you are blinded to your own mortality. But these are all signs. Reading through the stories of Musa alayhi salam, is that by the end of this, if we are patient enough and we persevere, there will come a time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to replace the injustice with justice. The challenge that we have is, what have we prepared for that moment of transition? And that's the beauty of the story of Musa alayhi salam. Just think about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him in the palace. So he was getting all of the best of education. He was getting the best of support. He was getting the best of whatever you can look for. He was now spending time with his family, right? Because Allah reintroduced him to his family. But he's also now getting the best of the palace world, right? Where he was treated like the prince. Until he got to a point where he started to see the injustice around him. He started to see, I'm different than these guys. I'm different than these siblings that I have. Why am I different? He knew that he came from Bani Israel. Nobody else knew. But this is what then led to these fears that started to take him out into the city. And people started to notice that, hey, he's from among us. He's one of us. And that's when the inner circle of Fir'aun started to break apart. That's when they started to shudder. But when we go into these depths, we start to see for ourselves, what resilience have we built for the time where the replacement will take place. Because there's only so much dhulm, there's only so much oppression that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow to happen on earth before he decides it's time for the istibdal to take place. And so the work that we have to do is prepare our hearts for that time. If we think back to every time in history, there were always, the forms of ibadah that we talk about in khutbahs and khatiras and halaqas like this, these are not performative. These are not for you and I to just check off a box and say, I'm doing what I need to do and I should be good. If we don't feel it in our core, if it's not changing us, if it's not allowing us to evolve in our relationship, where it starts to remove the elements of fear that naturally exist in the humankind, because now you're tying yourself further and further to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's not building the type of resilience that we need for the next generation of ai How will we then be a model when we now are witnessing, because of the generations, the 7 decades worth of oppression in Gaza? You're witnessing within just a mother's face, I'm not afraid of anything anymore. You've stripped everything that could have been scary to me, you've stripped it away. All I have is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When somebody sees that, when there's nothing to lose, that's the scariest. That's when everybody else is in fear. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling. Everything that they worked so hard to protect from themselves, they actually fell right into it. But that's the challenge that we have, brothers and sisters, that inshallah, if we come to the Quran with an open heart, we start to understand the lessons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to give us just within even a few ayat. Now what we do with it, yarhamkumullah, what we do with it in our daily life is up to us. And that's the work that prepares us for the moments where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will decide. We will either be ready or not ready, but it will still happen on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's timeline, where He makes the replacement and He elevates now the warithin, the ones who have inherited this position, this mansab, the station of leadership. We as believers will either be there as Muslims, or somebody else is going to find the secrets of this book and they will use that to become the leaders that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses. For we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us in our journey to Him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us from the different levels of insights He provides us through the Quran, through these stories, through these qasas, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us for our shortcomings. Inshallah, we'll open up. We have a few more minutes, but that's all that I think I had. If there's questions, if there's any comments, please feel free to ask, and we'll see inshallah what we can do. Yes. Wa alaikum salam. Well, if you're one of the infants, khalas, you're with Allah. There's no choice in that element, but I think it's who actually remains that struggles more with that. You know what I mean? But the sister asked the question, she said she was speaking with a Christian friend recently about Musa alayhi salam, and she was mentioning what we're hearing about from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the story of Musa, so the one who was saved. But there were also all of these other infants that were killed, right? So how do we reconcile the two, right? We all want to be Musa, but many of us may be the infants, right? So it's an excellent question. In the terms of how do we reconcile it, there's nothing really to reconcile if we are those people, right? Like right now, what we're witnessing, we ourselves are going through survival, what do they call it? Survival's guilt. Like why is this not, like, so let me give from my own perspective, as an Iraqi, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save me by bringing us here on vacation in 1990, and then we stayed because the first Gulf War broke out, so we couldn't go back, but all of my other family members who were still there went through all of the years of invasions, and many of them passed away and died. Like why am I Musa in this scenario, right? How do I live with what happened to all my cousins that are my same age or would have lived to the same age if they were saved? The way that I reconcile it, and this is, there is no, I don't have any dini response. Imam Majid may be much better than I am to explain this, but what I can say from this standpoint is this comes with a responsibility. This is why جَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً. We have a responsibility to be the ones who were saved, and many of us living in this country, if we look back and look at whether we were the ones who immigrated, or our parents immigrated, or our great-grandparents immigrated, whatever the ancestors, or we were stripped from our homes and brought here as slaves, and now the generations are being raised in this country where we have these freedoms to be able to do what we do. We are the A'imma Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, whether we like it or not. The reconciliation in my mind is we need to become okay with that. And we have to step up to that. Many of us, unfortunately, I think, shy away from that and say, la, I just need to focus on my family. I need to take care of my family. But I did the calculations. The American Muslim population, in comparison to the rest of the ummah, right? Which is like close to 2 billion now. We as Muslim American, not just adults, everybody, make up 0.18% of the Muslim ummah. 0.18%, right? Less than 0.2%. And yet, if you look at the concentration of power, of luxury, of prestige, of unimaginable resources, in comparison to the rest of the 99.98% of the ummah, we are a chosen people. Can we afford to continue to look internally and only say, I just got to take care of my family and the generations to come? Or do we actually have a far wider responsibility to the rest of the world? Because we were, Musa alayhi salam, saved when all of those others were killed for our ability to rise, right? But to me, the reconciliation is actually a responsibility that we have to be okay with. We have to come to terms with. We have to accept and embrace it and actually rise to the challenge with it. Which means we have to prepare ourselves. Which means we have to unlock ourselves from the shackles that tries to keep our minds controlled by, nope, just climb the ladder, do what you got to do, and that's it. Instead, we have to look at what goes far beyond that. What types of responsibilities exceed not only saving ourselves, but actually saving our people. And by our people, I am talking also humanity, because humanity needs Islam. It's not just the Muslims that need Islam. All of humanity needs Islam. But if us, the 0.18% of the Muslim ummah, and it's far less than that when you compare it to the rest of the world, if this population does not do what they can in order to spread through the resources and the gifts and the capabilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with, then what would it all have been for? And that's what we will be questioned about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but what we will be questioned about are these gifts that we were given, but we squandered them, wasting our time and being distracted with other things. And so for me, I would say we honor the dead. We honor those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sacrificed so that we may live this kind of life. And every single day, that should be a burden that we carry on our backs as believers, that continue to exist, that continue to persevere, that continue, just our breath is a resistance to a world that wants to eliminate us. And so by saying that, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses us and guides us and helps us. But it's a very important question. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us live up to it. Any other questions, comments?
I've heard this tafsir of this surah many, many times. One of the differences between yesterday and the previous was you mentioned the deficiencies of Musa alayhi salam. So usually people recognize that he needed the help of his brother because he had a lack of confidence in the way that he spoke. But you mentioned two more. So can you go into that in a little bit more detail and what we have to learn from it?
The two more, meaning the descriptions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us about the emotions that he had. Yeah, I mean, very clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about his fear of reptiles, right? He's afraid of the snake. He said, "La takhaf," right? "Sanu'iduha sirataha al-ula." So Musa himself, his innate state was very emotional, subhanallah. He also had a lot of anger. He threw the alwah, right? Meaning these were the scriptures that he went 40 days to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this trip. He left his brother in charge. He comes back and everything he worked for was to bring this back to the people of Israel. But when he saw that they were separated, he threw them the words of Allah. غَضْبَانَ أَسِفًا. He was so, and Allah uses another word, that فَلَمَّا سَكَتَ عَنْهُ سَكَتَ الْغَضَبَ. Once the anger almost like was swallowed, then Musa realized what he had done, right? So to me, it actually shows, we try to be so armored, and we try to be so controlled in our states, and this is actually part of the struggle that many men, I think, go to, is we don't know how to actually internalize and then externalize our own emotions. But through the story of Musa alayhi salam, you can see all of these elements that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposes to us with absolute clarity to show us he still did what no other prophet was able to do. Allah gave him the largest task outside of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam being the prophet till the end of time. He put him in front of the worst of tyrants. And he left that tyrant to be an ayah for the rest of eternity. And yet he then tells us, look at the fears that he had, the anxieties that he had, the insecurities that he had. And I would just change the wording to say, I don't think they are deficiencies. I actually think Allah uses them as strengths of his humanity. They seem for us as these are our weaknesses. In now all of the lessons I've learned about my own insecurities, the moment you actually realize them and you can harness them, they themselves become the reason Allah chose him to be the one who stands in front of Musa and in front of Fir'aun. So it is. I've really been spending a lot of time, so I appreciate the question, and I want to do something much more extended. That's actually why Imam Majid called me. He said, "Hey, I know you've been researching Musa and his emotions. Go do Surah Qasas." There's so many ayat I'm talking about that we haven't even gotten to. But so I want this to be something that is a recurring theme for you all if you continue to join these sessions, which I encourage, is to really look at the humanity of Musa and to see, subhanallah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose this prophet and then showed us and revealed to us all of these elements of him that are very intimate. But then to show us, look at what he was able to accomplish with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. It's something that is truly fascinating. It's something truly worth studying. And it's something that I believe should give us confidence as believers to say that we may struggle with different emotions and fears and insecurities. But when we look at Musa alayhi salam and his story, we understand that these complexes that we have built, if we buy into them and allow them to bring us lower, they will never be used as a strength to save the next to come. And so we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to be among those who can truly harness the gifts that He has given us and allow us to be ones that use them in the best ways possible. Ameen. Any final, one last one? Yes, sister. I can't hear. Can you repeat that? Oh, you're saying, how did Musa know that this was his mother? His brother. So he was reintroduced. So if you see, so the question was, how did Musa alayhi salam know that Harun was his brother? So he, alayhi salam, he got reintroduced to his family very quickly. So when in the stories, when his mother tells him, قصيه فبصرت به عن قريب عن جنب, the sister, his mother, didn't feel comfortable. Yes, she sent him. Allah told her, we're going to send him back. Don't be afraid. لا تحزني. Don't be sad. We're going to send him back to you. She still said to his sister, follow where he goes. And so when she followed the river, she saw that it ended up with Fir'aun, and she was already part of the staff of Pharaoh, so she could see that now he was not drinking from anyone. And you see, subhanAllah, Allah used feed him first, and then حرمنا عليه المراضع, right? Then we have made it that he doesn't take any other woman's milk. And that's when his sister, and Allah tells us, that's when she said, oh, I know of a woman who can take, a wet nurse, who can take care of him. And so his mother was now brought back into his life. And that's how the introduction. So you could see he was almost living a double life. He was being raised in the palace, but he still had his exposure to his family that continued to give him that strength. And this is where they start to see the separation between Musa and Fir'aun as he got older. And that's why he was going out in the city and he was yataraqab. His head was on a swivel because he had already created noise, because he was doing certain things kind of behind the scenes to help the people of Israel. So, but that's an excellent question. So he was reintroduced to his family very early because of his inability to drink from any other woman and because his mother fed him. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, nabiyina wa habibina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man istanna wa da'a ila sunnatihi ila yawmiddin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us with this Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand this Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for our lack of understanding of this Quran, or if we said anything that was incorrect from this Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illuminate our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us with this Quran. May this Quran be something that we live with, that we live by, that we act upon, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it our friend in our grave, makes it our intercessors when we stand before Him. And He says that this person used to read me, Ya Allah, and he does not stop to intercede except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enters us into the highest levels of paradise. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow the Quran to know us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to know the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow our children to be Ahlul Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be Hufad of the Quran. May He allow our children to be Hufad of the Quran, not only in its memorization, but in its meanings and its actions and its ability to live it among the people, teach it to the people. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our khuluq the khuluq of the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among the people of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. May He allow us to drink from His hand, a drink that will never allow us to be thirsty again. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate us and allow us to meet Musa alayhi salam. May He allow us to be in the hashra of his mother. May He allow us to meet her. May He allow us to speak to her. May He allow us to be with Harun alayhi salam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among the righteous. May He make us among the siddiqeen. May He make us among the shuhada. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us from this world when He's pleased with us. May Allah use us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use us for the betterment of this world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us gifts that He has never given anyone before us. May He allow us to use those gifts to change this world, to make this world a better place, to not shy away from the responsibility that He has given us, the gifts that He has given us. May Allah allow us to rise up to them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us and strengthen us and remove the fear from our hearts, and allow us to not fear anything except Allah, that we displease Allah, that we lose sight of Allah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the greatest forms of khushu' in all of our actions, in all of our worship, in all of our submission to Him. May He grant us the secrets of khushu', and may He make us successful because of that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us and all of those who have passed before us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help our brothers and sisters who are suffering and struggling around the world and in our backyards. May Allah alleviate their pain. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answer their dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring sakina to their hearts and our hearts. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of us. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.